thank you for joining this webinar hosted by SolutionBuggy, where in the next 90 minutes, let's try and understand more about ethanol manufacturing and what it takes to set up a unit. We have an eminent panel of speakers today who have good experience in setup of these plants. Firstly, I'd like to introduce Mr. Sharat Chaudhary, who has more than 35 years of industrial experience in the chemical industry with various capacities ranging from scientist to managing director and chairman of companies. He is pioneer in developing products and processes development for various channels. He also received a gold medal for chlorphamazine drug development and worked on ethanol plant setup with turnkey execution. Team Solution Buggy is represented by Mr. Guru Prasad Bangal, who is a director at Solution Buggy with a 15 years of experience in consulting and an entrepreneur who has successfully sold his first venture. He has an MBA from IIMB and looks after project management. Over the last few years, having interacted with many experts and agencies, he has developed a few key insights in the ethanol process and ways to set up the industry by seeking the government schemes and benefits. Next, we have Mr. Nitin Gowda, who is a project manager, and currently he is handling 5 ethanol plant setup projects for Solution Buggy. He is a mechanical engineer and has about 10 years of manufacturing industry experience and well versed with the nitty gritties of getting the approvals and sanctions for ethanol manufacturing unit. So now we will start with Mr. Sharat Chaudhary's presentation, and I'll now hand over the uh, next to him. So
Thank you, ma'am.
over to you, Sharat sir.
Yeah, thank you. I am from Leadscape Business Solution in the association with Solution Buggy. I introduce myself. Our the last 35 years, Leadscape has changed from typical manufacturing unit to modern specialty chemical and pharma intermediate manufacturing company. Leadscape Business Solution is established with a vision to excel in conceptualization, designing, erection, and operation with turnkey solution for establishment or modification of manufacturing plant in various sectors of pharmaceutical, specialty chemicals, biotech, herbal, homeopathy, cosmetics, and food industry. Lead scheme offers projects execution as per national and international regulatory norms and in accordance with specific requirement of the clients. Our expertise and knowledge help us execute projects of any scale and complexity within a stipulated time frame. Profitability focus. We believe in empowering profitability, and we do that by helping you break free of industry constraint. Our innovative approach is strengthened by industry insights and engineering experience. Our solution add value to your corporation. You set the goal and we will deliver it for you. Community. Solving a big problem requires an eternity that has skilled 93% of the businesses even before launch. Unlike the conventional startup process, we help you optimize technical, architectural, and development time with the help of our huge resources. Let be in remote country specific market research data or problem solving using artificial intelligence. We can arrange every resource possible for you to go to the market. Business model, these are our business models. Contracts R&D, campaign manufacturing, pharmaceutical intermediates, manufacturing specialty chemical, alcohol and ethanol industry, chemical auxiliary and chemical auxiliaries for textile and paint industries, manufacturing API and bulk drugs, manufacturing agrochemical intermediates, manufacturing plant growth promoters, manufacturing of agro biocontrol products, manufacturing aromatic natural oil and derivatives, cultivating medicinal herbs. My core team is consist of myself, Dr. Sharad Chaudhary, formulation and research, Abhishek Narke, process and machine design, Mr. Gautam Chaudhary, process and plant design. We have a consortium of novel consultants at Leadskin Business Solution, Mr. Prakash Saitwal, handling expert, Mr. Pramod Sanghvi, thermal process expert, Dr. Rajendra Kanitkar, design expert, Dr. Vivek Dikshit, development expert, Dr. Pramod Chaudhary, development expert, Mr. Sammati Jain, marketing expert, Mr. Parag Yevlgorkar, design expert, Mr. Rahul Chaudhary, management expert, and Mr. Arun Patil, marketing expert. Why biofuel? Easy to use, energy security, product locality, product locally, builds economical development, greenhouse gas and emission reduction, energy balance, recyclable and biodegradable, simple production process. Making biofuel, convert three-headed oils into hydrocarbon chains similar to petroleum. This is input for a biodiesel. Vegetable oil, which is feedstock, methanol or ethanol, catalyst lye, and water. And output comes biodiesel, dirty water, and glycerin. Biofuel consists of actually biodiesel and bioethanol. These are the two chemicals out of this. So we will be dealing in this seminar only bioethanol. But to give you a broad idea, biofuel is from first generation, second generation, third generation, and fourth generation. First generation biogas, biodiesels, and bioethanol can be produced. Second generation cellulosic biofuel and biomethanol and biohydrogen. Third generation is from algae and fourth generation synthetic biofuel. Type of feedstock and in front of that is example. Sugar-based feedstocks, sugarcane, sugar beet, molasses, cane juice, beet juice. Starchy material, examples are wheat, corn, and barley. Lignocellulose, examples are wood, straw, and bagasse. Feedstock and bioethanol production out of it. Sugarcane can give 70 liters per ton. Sugar beet can give 110. Sweet potato can give 125. Potato 110. Cassava 180. Maize 360. Rice 430. Barley 250. Wheat 340. Sorghum 60. Bagasse and other cellulosic biomass gives 280. A tale of two biofuel, biodiesel versus bioethanol. Application here biodiesels is being blended in diesel, whereas bioethanol is blended in petroleum products. Raw material I have already discussed in my previous slide. Bioethanol is mainly fermentation is from most common method for producing fuel ethanol. The most common ethanol production processes today use yeast to ferment the starch and sugar in corn, sugarcane, and sugar beets. Corn is the main feedstock for fuel ethanol in the United States because of its abundant and relatively low price historically. The starch in corn kernels is fermented into sugar, which is then fermented into alcohol. Sugarcane and sugar beets are most common feedstock used to make fuel ethanol in other parts of the world. Because alcohol is made by fermenting sugar, sugar crops are the easiest ingredient to convert into alcohol. Brazil, the world's second largest fuel ethanol producer after the United States, makes most of its fuel ethanol from sugarcane. Most of the cars in Brazil can run on pure ethanol or on blend of gasoline and ethanol. What
Guruji,
scenario?
if you can add some inputs as well when you are going through the slides from your
Yeah,
end.
yeah. This is what scenario in ethanol production. Here, United States, 16,100, which is 56% of the total world production. Brazil, it's 7,950, which is 20% of the world production. European Union, 1,430. China, 180. Canada, 480. Thailand, 390. Argentina, 290. Rest of the world, 550. And India has 330, which is hardly 1%. This is the world scenario in ethanol production. Ethanol demand in India. According to ICRA research, India's ethanol production has to be increased three times in a current level to meet the target of 20% ethanol blending by 2025. According to the study, India ethanol production in 2021 was roughly 335 crores liters. As a result, roughly 9% ethanol was blended into petrol. The present average alcohol production from molasses in the country is around 2,500 million liters per annum. However, wide variation in ethanol production is observed over the last few years. Due to the fluctuation in sugarcane production, in India alcohol is largely produced in form of ether. Rectified spirit, which is we call shortly RS, and it is 95 to 96% volume by volume ethanol, which is mainly used for industrial application in the form of ordinary denatured spirit, which is shortly called as ODS, or special denatured spirit, which is shortly called as SDS. Extra neutral alcohol.
Sharadji,
Huh,
Sharadji,
yeah.
yeah. So I suggest if you can add your points also, so that whatever
This is
the
I have. This is I have all points I have taken on to
right,
the.
right. So if you can, you see, because the PPT they're able to read. So if
Uh,
you can add a few points on these this one, and then anyway we are sharing the presentation with the people.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
This is this is the ethanol demand in India. I am just briefing here. Fuel ethanol, which is absolute alcohol, 99.8%. This is actually required to blend into the petrol. Availability of the and utilization of the ethanol in India. In 2010 and 11, sugarcane production 242 2015 16 346, 2020 21 370, and propose is a 225 to 26 is 394. This is proposed. And in 231, it is proposed 418 metric ton of sugarcane production. And net availability of the billion liters out of it has been proposed on 2025 to 26 is 3.13, and during the year 2030 to 31 3.32. Now total ethanol demand and deficit has been written here. This is 5%, 10% and 20%. These are the blending target. While deficit also against 5%, 10% and 20%. You will see there that deficit is a 1.4% and 10% target minus 3.3%, and in 20% minus 7.3%. You will see here it is increasing. This deficit is increasing, and from this data you can infer which is very much shortage is going to come. Now, who are the top producer in India? These are the first five top producer I have taken, which are presently producing ethanol in India. That is Bajaj Hindustan Limited is one of, Ballarpur Chini Mills Limited, second one. Then Dalmia Bharat Sugar, then Sri Renuka Sugar Limited, and Trinity Group. These are the five top ethanol producer in India right now. Ethanol demand for meeting the blending target across the Indian state. Here you will find Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Bihar, Gujarat, Haryana, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Odisha, Punjab, Tamil Nadu, Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, West Bengal, and others. Here you will find Gujarat is 1.62, whereas Maharashtra 1.65. Uttar Pradesh is sorry, Uttar Pradesh is 1.17 and others 2.62. These are the demands presently in blending for petrol. And ethanol demand in metric tons, these are already here in the 5% blend, 10% blend, and 20% blend. Second generation bioethanol production process. This is very much you can go through here from sugarcane and lignocellulose material has to make it slurry. Then
So I can also add a few points over here.
yeah,
So typically, what happens is, the government has also, got out some good policies for the ethanol production. And what has been typically seen is ethanol is for somebody who is already having a bagasse producing unit or a molasses producing unit, who are typically the sugarcane manufacturers. But over the last few years, the government has seen that there is a good potential to develop ethanol from any of the starch producing pulses and grains. So typically
that starch producer has to
rice,
first
maize,
make
and then
hydrolase.
you have sorghum, a host of host of other raw materials also, which you can use in terms of making the ethanol. That is where the opportunity today is for other people who are not generally into sugarcane manufacturing or into sugarcane growing or sugar manufacturing process. to get into the process of ethanol manufacturing as well by using the grain based distilleries as well. So that is where the opportunity is also there, and the process, as you see, might be slightly technical for the audience that has come in here.
No, that is
But
fully technical, and
right,
audience
right.
may not be coming to this knowing
Right.
this thing
So,
because
so as Sharat ji has mentioned, it is basically getting the raw material into the pre-treatment tanks, and then getting the slurry made, which basically tries to filter out the impurities, and then getting into the sacrification, and the entire distillation and the fermentation process starts. Uh, when you make the when you look at the process, it might seem too technical, but then it is very similar to the existing distilleries where the ENA is being prepared. So either it is the grain based alcohol, or whether it is the based on molasses and on the sugarcane syrup that is available. The process more or less remains same. So
no
ideally,
grain,
what we also
grain.
look at is if we can, set up the units. We tell the people that don't depend on only one raw material, because India, again, being a very seasonal country, and then how rainfalls can affect the agricultural produce. So go for a multi-mode kind of a plant setup, wherein you could probably use if sugarcane is available, but generally, how the sugar industries work, and how much of the influence they have on the availability of the sugarcane and on the molasses, etc. So typically, the grain-based option is a more feasible one, because you can at least
But
guarantee the raw materials available.
grain-based material requires hydrolysis in between
Right, right,
because directly yeast cannot be used there.
right,
Yeast is only work on the sugars. So you have to bring those raw material into sugar by the way of hydrolysis. Hence, starchy material and lignocellulosic material, all these material has to be first degraded by the hydrolysis and make it into the sugar, and then yeast will act on that using fermentation broth, and pure ethanol can be obtained. So other raw materials require some additional machinery because one additional step is there, hydrolysis step is there. In sugarcane, that hydrolysis is not involved. It is this yeast can be used directly after concentration of the juice and making fermentation. This is a flow diagram of first and second generation bioethanol. This sugar feedstock, starch feedstock, and lignocellulose feedstock. This lignocellulose feedstock has to be pre-treatment and enzyme hydrolysis. Then only it can be set to fermentation process. Likewise, sugar feedstock, juice extraction, and then has to be subject to fermentable sugar. While starch feedstock, starch hydrolysis, liquefaction by alpha amylase, then starch hydrolysis, and then yeast fermentation is carried out, then distillation for the dehydration of alcohol, and finally it is ready for bleeding purpose. This is bioethanol production from sugarcane. This is a very technical thing. I ऐसा देखेंगे तो बहुत ही एक्सप्लेन करने में टाइम लगेगा, बट दिस इज शुगर कैन goes to milling, then juice is extracted, it is liming, and then flash distillation is set, where settler mud is being separated, clarified juice is sent to evaporator, it is concentrated and then put for the fermentation by adding yeast there. And then after fermentation, absorption and distillation of the ethanol, and then final dehydration makes to anhydrous ethanol. This is a typical 20 kl per annum ethanol pilot plant. एक 2017 में ये पायलट प्लांट खड़ा किया है. The major component of the ethanol production plant are storage tank है, then tanks for mash processing, saccharification, fermentation tank, then distillation equipment, process and plant support system, utility and transportation equipment, process and operation management control, effluent treatment plant, offices and maintenance infrastructure. This is a typical 30 KLPD and 60 KLPD ethanol plant from the rice and sugarcane. These are the investment percentage of the total project. This, Mr. Guru, I think you are going to take it
Yes, so we will
for.
give you a ballpark figure. Maybe when Nitin takes up the financials, he will give a ballpark figure of how
Huh.
much it will cost to set up a 100 KLPD plant. And we'll also discuss on the various
Yeah.
options that people with lower budgets have, which they can look at.
Yeah.
So, but this just gives
Yes.
a brief idea.
This is brief idea is percentage basis minimum requirement land 5 to 6 acre. I have assumed 15 lakhs per acre is approximate price. So it comes to 2% investment of the total project cost. Then cost of civil work, which contains effluent treatment plant, then plant base, then foundation, office building, warehouse, storage, boundaries, road, etc., and construction. It is 10% investment of total project cost.
And
Then,
also, when Sharadji has mentioned 30 KLPD, it means 30 kiloliters per day.
yeah, 30 kiloliters per day and 60 kiloliters per day. But I have not separated it.
Right,
This
right.
investment is approximate because everybody who is interested in establishing the plant has his own capacity to speak with. Cost for complete equipment and plant is a 38%. Cost for required high pressure boiler 15.64. Technical know-how 3.26%. Cost of all electronic instrumentation 7.64. Working capital 11.80. प्रोजेक्ट एट ए ग्लांस अगर देखेंगे इथेनॉल फ्रॉम राइस एंड इथेनॉल फ्रॉम शुगर केन मोस्ट बोथ आर दी नियर अबाउट ब्रेक इवन 42 राइस ब्रान के लिए राइस इथेनॉल के लिए एंड शुगर केन 46.3%. Internal rate of return here in case of rice 25.1%. In case of sugarcane, 24.8%. It is around 7. Payback period of project 2 years and 4 months. Here also 2 years and 6 months. Fixed asset covering ratio is 4.23, whereas sugarcane 4.18. These all above costs are indicative and respect to change according to geological location, inflation and government policies. Now, government policy on biofuel, these are a very few highlights I have taken. Government approved the national policy on biofuel 2018 and ethanol blending. They are targeting 20% maximum by the end of 2030. By diesel 5% and bioethanol 20%. Among other things, policy expand the scope of feedstock for ethanol production. The government has also increased the price of C-heavy molasses based ethanol. Government has set some prices on from ethanol from the different raw material sources, which will be in next slides also. Then categorize of biofuel to enable extension of approx create financial and fiscal incentive under each category. These are नीति आयोग का है रोड मैप. M molasses, they have set price 57.61. Sugarcane gives and sugar syrup ethanol 62.65. C molasses 45.69. Damaged food grain 51.55. Rice available with FCI is 56.87. Maize would be 51.55. These are the prices they have set from the Niti Aayog. This is the same, just I clarified you. Ethanol capacity augmentation from sugar sector total 684. From grain, maize, etc. 666. So total is 1350. Now existing ethanol alcohol capacity is 426 231 distilleries का डाटा है ये, एंड 258 113 distilleries से grain based comes to 684. Capacity addition for the sanction projects coming, which are coming by 2022 is 93. New capacity to be added 241 in molasses base and 482 in grain base. Around 723 are total. So total capacity required by November 2026 to reach the 1350 crores liter supply, there is requirement of 760, and in grain base 740, total to get 1500. 1500, why? Assuming 90% capacity, it will give you 1350 crores liter. This is water consumption. This is a typical 40 kiloliter ethanol plant. Thank you. It's Guru now.
Yeah. So give me a minute. I'll just put in my presentation. Nitin will be loading it up. Uh, I believe most of the uh, ethanol plants till date have been either initiated through people who have existing sugar plants, or are looking at already having access to sugarcane production. But over the last 3 to 4 years, as the policies which Mr. Sharadji has shared, has propitiated the use of grains, basically for setting up these plants. The understanding is that anybody other than who already has a sugarcane milling unit or sugar processing unit can get access to the grains. So if you see, even in the policy, it is very well said that the grains can be either procured from the FCI itself, or you could have a local procuring mechanism. But traditionally, whatever the the rates that you are getting from FCI is, you can get better rates in the market, and also typically you can get better kind of raw material from the outside market as well. So when we have seen these kind of plants that we are trying to set up, the best method that works basically is that you could procure the grains mostly from the market, but also use some of the FCI sanctioned godown raw material. The only reason being that the price for broken grains is much lesser than the price for FCI procured grains as raw material. Uh, the next option which we could look at is some of them have options to use locally available pulses, which could be sorghum, barley, wheat, and other options as well. But see, the technical feasibility of the project is by and large based on the availability of corn and rice as your staple raw material. So even when we make the presentations to get your DFPD approvals or to get your environmental clearances, we generally take that the prominent raw material that you're going to use will be either maize or rice in a grain-based ethanol plant. So this is some of the tidbits that I just wanted to share. So I'll just run you through the presentation that we have and walk you through some of the nuances which you will have to go through for getting the help from the government. I would not call this as a subsidy because it's basically an interest subvention scheme from the government, wherein up to 95% of the project cost can be covered by bank loans. Uh, so with that, so I think most of you would know what SolutionBuggy does, but to the others who don't know, we are an online platform to connect the manufacturing industries with the experts. We provide one-stop solution for any of your requirements, not just ethanol, because I believe many of them who are coming here for the webinar today have come in for to know more about the ethanol plant setup and production related nuances. But obviously there are some considerations with respect to the budget and the kind of investment that is required for an ethanol plant. But what I would say is, that's not the end of the world. But there are other options as well. As in Sharatji was telling, you could look at biomass-based diesel or bio-based glycerol, or the normal ENA and the rectified spirits market as well, which of course do not have the kind of loan backing which is available for an ethanol plant. But then again, there are other subsidies and schemes as well, which can be looked at based on the location and the kind of raw materials that you will be using to produce these things. Uh, Again, we could also look at options wherein a SolutionBuggy as a project partner can give you options which could be chemicals that are used for the ethanol based plants, which again is a very lucrative market, and currently most of them are being sourced from the Chinese markets. So, as Sharatji mentioned, the entire buzz about ethanol is basically because of the ethanol blending, which is looking at least 20% of the fuel has to be blended with ethanol, and we will have to make sure that at least by 2030 you will have a large amount of vehicles which will be feasible to run at even at 50% addition of ethanol. But the general consensus is also that over a period of time EVs will come in and then take over and things like that. But we should not forget that fuel is not being just used for the vehicles. Fuel is in India is being used for a host of other reasons as well, for the commercial DGs and industries, as well as the other options where ethanol can be used in the pharma sector as well. So these are some of the other areas where you can also look at on a long term kind of a future, but it still is a sunrise sector for the next 10 to 15 years. So what we do, we obviously help you, commercialize the kind of whatever budgets you come up with. We try to see what you can get into in terms of the product identification or the market that you can target, and also look at with the kind of budget that you have, who are the right experts whom you can tie up with and give you the right opportunities to come up with the manufacturing sector. So this is our core team. Most of you on the webinar know many of us, with Arjun, myself, and Vikas, and then we have Mr. Devendra Singh Mehra as well, who basically looks after the projects. So, like I said, we do end-to-end project execution. Whatever a project involves, we will be, uh, turnkey execution of these projects. So again, coming back to what the government is looking at, and what is the kind of investments that the government is planning to make in this, and what is the kind of savings that the government is projected to have. What has happened over the last last time when the ethanol plant the applications were opened up, and DFPD applications were to be filled in. Almost about 400 to 500, about 422 applications were made in. But that was the first time when the applications were taken up. So typically, what happened is anybody and everybody who had a plan took it up, right? And the government found out later that they don't either have the exact land locations that were mentioned, or there was not enough net worth of the individuals. So what we have seen is about 130 to 140 of these projects which were approved last year have actually gone into the next level of implementation stage. So this year, when the applications open up, the environmental clearance and the DFPD, what we expect is a more stringent process to do the classification and categorization of the applicants. And second thing is, even after the in-principle approvals are given out, it does not, and you make your agreements with the OMC, which is the oil marketing company, it does not guarantee you that you can get whatever you have applied for. For example, say you have applied for a 100 KLPD, kind of a plant, but it could probably be that the government just approves 50 KLPD, right? So this is something that we have learned over the last 1 year of our association with the ethanol-based plants. So what the government has given us as an option is not as a subsidy, but an interest subvention scheme, which basically looks at promoting people who are having a good net worth, who are ready to get into the ethanol manufacturing plants, and who have availability of resources. When I mean resources, it is land with availability of good water, and also it has to be very close to highways, because obviously your end product being ethanol has to be transported back to the nearest refinery or the mixing substation. So, like I was telling, what is the exact scheme that is available is that the 50% of the interest rate that is charged by the banks will be borne by the ministry themselves. And what they will also offer you is the security required for such a huge loan is only 5% of the loan amount. So this is something that has come out with, but again, see, being a government scheme, there are raiders to it. The raiders being that first of all, it has to be a private limited company which is going to form this entire setup. And either the net worth of the private limited company over the last 3 to 5 years has to be good enough that they'll be qualifying for such a huge collateral free kind of a loan. Or the second part is the directors who are coming for making this particular venture should have very good net worth, which can be almost equivalent of the loan amount that you are looking at. So having said that, it does not mean that somebody who is able to invest only 5% of the entire project will be given an opportunity. You will still be given an opportunity based on the other factors, because the entire arrangement is that an escrow account will be made once you start making your ethanol and you are going to supply it to the OMC, and the escrow account will be completely operated by the bank. So the first lien on that particular account is to the bank, and then you get access to whatever money that is there in the escrow account. So now, if you see, is anybody and everybody who is going to set up a ethanol manufacturing unit eligible? No, there are a few riders there as well. So those who are going into grain-based distilleries, it has to be a dry distillery. The wet distilleries do not qualify for this. So wherein what it means is that your byproduct, one of the byproduct is DDGS as well. So what it basically allows you is that not just your ethanol, but your DDGS also can be sold in the open market, which is almost equivalent to the cost of your raw material. For example, if you look at maize as your raw material, which comes up to around 20 to 23 rupees, your DDGS, which is generated from maize, also retails for about 20 to 21 rupees. On a similar ground, if you are looking at rice as your raw material, which probably you will be getting through the local markets between 12 to 16 rupees, your DDGS from rice is again costing you the same amount, about 15 to 16 rupees. So it has to be mandatory that it has to be a dry based grain distillery. If you are looking at molasses or sugarcane based, then the only norm is that you have to go for a ZLD method, which is the zero liquid discharge. So which basically means that, say for example, your requirement of water could be about 8 liters for making 1 liter of ethanol. Then in that case, about 4 liters comes from your fresh water source, and another 4 liters will be coming in from your ETP plants. So suppose somebody has a traditional way of sugarcane distillery method, then this inter-subvention scheme for him is not applicable. Also, say suppose somebody has an option of existing distillery itself, which has a lower level of purity, 95% or something like that, and then he installs additional distillation and columns. Then for him also, for this additional investment, there is an option to get inter-subvention scheme. So, and then how do you get approval? Of course, we can summarize it in one slide, but all of us must understand that this is an entire project that we are looking at. So, although it's a point wise what we have mentioned over here, there is a lot of background work that goes into it, and that is why what we have decided is we need to split this project, which I mean for whomever is going to go ahead for it, into two phases. The phase one is basically until the point where you can get your approvals, be it the DFPD approval or the environmental clearance or your local PCB approvals. So, and you also get an in principle approval from the bank for the loan part of it, and you also look at the agreement with your oil marketing company, OMC. So this is the first phase where you know that all the approvals are in place, and the second phase comes in when using these approvals and starting your entire plant setup. So that is where the entire process has been bifurcated. So I think with that, I would ask Nitin to give you an kind of a bird's eye view of what the entire process involves, and also how a typical plant costing will work out. Post that, I will
Right.
rejoin and also try to explain some of the key questions that we have got on the forum, and also look at some of the examples, live examples that we have dealt with. Over to you, Nitin.
Thank you, Guru sir, and thank you, Sharad sir, for your valued information regarding the technical aspects for the ethanol plants. I'm starting this complete presentation with giving a basic idea for the clients who are planning to set up an ethanol plant. What are the basic things they have to consider, or what a pre-preparation they have to make by themselves to make a decision that yeah, I can set up an ethanol plant. The major things which we need here is the location which we are choosing it, and the raw material availability in the particular location. It may be a grain based, or it may be a molasses or sugarcane based. So we need to check in a background that what kind of raw material available in your region, in the northern part or southern part or the eastern part of India where you're going to set up. Raw material availability should be surplus, so that the plant which going to set up, it needs a huge amount of raw material. Which what is the ratio of raw material required for to produce the ethanol? I can explain you in the coming slides. Parallelly, other policies such as government policies and regulations we need to check, because a lot of clearance we need to take here. Since the ethanol is, even though we are calling it as a green belt project, but again it comes under the red zone due to some chemical process involved here. And as Guru sir also said, the connectivity, good rail and road connectivity for the complete ease of transportation, sustainable availability of water, because water is a major another major source of material which is required to produce the ethanol, and the other facilities like the local and other facilities like local impacts and local approvals from the Taluk Panchayat and all. Once we coming to a land, so one has to know that I'm just giving an example of 100 KLPD plant. 100 KLPD, when I say it is like 1 lakh liter per day capacity of a plant, it requires roughly around, exactly if I say the plant completely fits in a 22 acres of approximately 22 acres it can easily fit in. I have mentioned here as a 25 to 30 considering the future expansion one. Also, there is a mandate from the environmental department that if we are setting up of ethanol plant, a 33% of the projected land should be converted as a, or it should be made it as a green belt area. So that for considering that aspect also, like 25 acres, if I consider up to 7 to 8 acres, we need to leave it as a green belt area, and remaining 14 acres will fit in the construction. 3 to 4 acres will go in the road and other basic infrastructure and facilities. This is a just basic idea which you have to consider. And once other aspect of the land is the land which you are selecting to set up an ethanol plant, it should be at least minimum of 8 to 9 kilometers away from the village zone, which is having a population of around 3,000 or more. And also it should be 8 to 9 kilometers away from the forest zone as per the environmental norms. We need to take care of those aspects also. So coming to the project phases, as Guru sir said, we have divided it into two phases because it need to be executed in the two phases ethanol projects. Because the phase one completely on the documentation and licensing part, where we have to deal with a lot of department like EC, Environmental Clearance Department, Pollution Control Board Department, DFPD Department, preparation of all the pre-documentation completely as per the norms of the ministry, as per the norms of the banks and other things. So then we start. We have to start applying to the Ministry of DFPD or environmental clearance whenever the portal is open, and we'll get a proper guidelines from the ministry that what application to be submitted in the what timeline, what is the guidelines for that one, what are the supporting documents we need to submit. Everything will be properly given by the ministry in the guidelines. So we have taken this phase one, which includes project conceptualization. If conceptualization, when I say, if you come up with the part where you have surplus amount of grain, for example broken rice is available, then we can't say that in the period of over 12 months you are getting a broken rice. We need to see, apart from the broken rice, in the off season or in the other season, which are the other for example the grains can be utilized which is having a good starch content, where because raw materials, the grain or pulses which you use, it should have a starch content of more than 55% at least to get a proper yield in the output of the ethanol. So then preparing a detailed project report, financial module, business module, everything includes in the detailed project report. And also then comes the other key documentation like credit monitoring arrangement of the promoters, and the technical part of the thing, and the marketing part, how we are connecting the OEMs for the tie-ups and other things. This is one part of the documentation. Parallelly, then comes the licensing part, where the couple of departments we need to interact. Where one is the main is the DFPD, Department of Food and Public Distribution, where we have to get the approval from the ministry first by submitting these some list of key documents to the ministry. Once we get the approval from the ministry, then the next phase is going to the environmental clearance approval, and then comes to the environmental clearance approval will be taken from the central department of the government, and next comes the pollution control approval that comes under the state department of the particular location, and then followed with the approvals from the banks, getting a principal sanction letter, and then the disbursement and the rest of the things. So the phase one is getting the approvals, pre-documentation of all the departments whichever is required. This comes under the phase one of the. So phase two, post approval of ministry, what is the next thing? That comes the real practical thing which we are doing. Once we get a principal sanction letter from the bank, and bank will give us the complete schedule of disbursement of the loan, how it has been disbursement, what are the installments and all. Then we start complete conceptualization, like implementation of complete things, starting from planning the complete preparation of completed time plan. For example, we say that if the plant can be set up within 12 to 15 months of time, what are the milestone of the 12 to 15 months? What are the things we have to achieve in the first month or second month? Like that, the complete plan will be prepared. Parallelly, the work will start. The civil works, technical civil works that comes under the structural activities. Then parallelly, then going to the machine suppliers, ordering the machines, and completely defining the process. And then comes the manpower planning, utilities. These are the next things which comes in the real practical thing. And obviously the bank and IT supports for the documentation purpose. IT support is need for the complete plan to monitor each and every departments in terms of inventory, in terms of organization management and other things. Parallelly, we start working on the regulatory permissions also. Not only ECR pollution, we have to get the excise approval, also excise department approval also, and followed with a lot of NOCs we have to take, because this is going to be settled in a location where surrounding there will be maybe, as I said, the forest or a reservoir. We need to take the approvals or licensing from them, that okay, we are approved to set up a plant here, and we are setting up a plant which is completely, if I say grain based, okay, completely dry distillery process we are using, which does not impacting anything to the neighboring industries or the neighboring environment also. And if you're going to molasses, a completely zero liquid discharge. So and parallelly, the other works will comes once the plant and machinery everything is starts installation. The key engineers will come. We call it as a chartered engineers, who completely evaluate, do the audit of the plant, and completely gives us the certification of audits and all. Then followed with the conducting the trial runs, training the complete manpower, and doing a couple of trial runs, and completely robustly we design the complete plant over there. So deliverables, as I said, we take end-to-end services. So starting from the concept, if any client come to us like saying that I have a such amount of land available which meets the criteria of the ministry, and I can see that in our district or in our city surplus amount of raw material availability is also there. That concept we will take, and we'll prepare a complete module for them, how your plan project can be executed, what are the benefits you can avail, and how it can be executed in the stage wise and everything. As ministry has also given a timeline of complete execution of the plan should be in around of 15 to 18 months, but we based on our experience and keen on handling in multiple projects on the ethanol, we can successfully complete the project post approval of the ministry within 12 months of the time. So as I said, lot of clearance we need to make, regulatory compliances, which comes the preliminary. The main one is not everyone will be having a industrial land. There may be agriculture land, or there may be a industrial land. Someone will be taking it for a lease, who is not interested to buy the complete land. So complete lease agreement in the name of the company which is going to be incorporated for this ethanol project, or the purchased land to be in the name of the company or a director, and it has to be, if it is a agricultural land, it has to be converted to industrial purpose. So then only we'll get the approval from the ministry. It has to be approved by the department to convert it into industrial purpose. Second major aspect, as I said earlier, the environmental clearance from the central ministry for setting up of this plant, followed with pollution control board clearance from the state. And as I said, there are other things which need to be considered. The NOCs from the Gram Panchayat, if you are using the nearby reservoirs water for as a raw material source, followed with town planning department's approvals and NOCs, fire department NOCs, and state forest department NOCs is also one of the major thing which we need to take care. And the license, as I said, license from the excise department. So since ethanol comes under the chemical, also an alcohol based one, we need to get a license from the ethanol excise department also. And the factory approvals, factory license, and other what regarding the waters as from the irrigation department and other things, we need to get the license. So, just coming to a project cost at a glance, for taking an example of 100 KLPD one generation distillery plant. So, if I consider major raw material as a grains like broken rice or a maize or any other pulses which is having a good percentage of starch, more than 55% of starch with an moisture content of 10 to 12%, we save to get a better yield. More than that, the yield will also affect. And also the second other major thing is the water availability. So to produce 1 lakh liter of ethanol, we need at least 8 lakh liter of fresh water plus 4 lakh liter of recycled water from our in-house ETP plant. This is the major thing which, as I explained you regarding the land, 22, 25, 25 acres of land we need. And what are the products outcome of ethanol? Apart from ethanol, what we get? EDGS, which can be utilized for as an animal feed industry or any other. And the CO2 which comes out, which can be stored in the cylinder and can be sold in the market. And one other major component which comes in the ethanol plant is we should have our own co-power generation unit. We can't depend on the local electricity for the power, as it goes the cost like operational cost will go very high. So there should be a power generation unit of our own. Suggested that 3.2 megawatt at least we need for a 100 KLPD. If you are going for a lesser KLPD of we say 50 KLPD plant, then at least 2 megawatt plant is power generation unit is required. Coming to overall cost, how it comes, overall cost fitting for the 100 KLPD plant, which includes land and site development, factory building of civil structures and technical civil cost, plant and machinery, power generation, ETP, material handling equipment, and other miscellaneous whatever comes in the components. Approximately, it will fit up in the range of 140 to 150 crore of investment. So this is roughly a total project cost for an 100 KLPD 1G grind distillery plant. So there are a lot of benefits in ethanol project. I think I'll hand over to Guru sir to give more about ideas about these benefits of ethanol plant.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, looking at the kind of the in ethanol which is mandated by the government. Obviously, it seems like a very lucrative sector of. We have also seen LPD plant, but what we have seen is the economic feasibility of the ethanol project, considering the rates that the government is giving today, is good only if you are looking at least a minimum of 30 KLPD and above. Ideally, I would say even 50 KLPD is the best option. So otherwise, it is you will still be running the unit, but you will not be able to get the right kind of advantages. So although government is saying that this is going to be a good sector for the next 15 to 20 years, and you could be a supplier to the OMC. So your biggest headache in any manufacturing unit is to find a buyer. But in this case, your buyer is already fixed and he is not going to change for the rest of your life or for the life of the entire plant. This is something like a dream come true for any manufacturing aspirant, right? But what would probably put you back is the kind of investment that is going into it, and also the kind of involvement from your end. Running a alcohol based unit will require different kind of skill category as well. So what we suggest is, although there is a good option that the government has given to go for these ethanol based fuel units, there are various other options as well that you can look at, which I had initially also talked about. If the plant does not fit under your budget, right? Typically 100 KLPD, which is a 1 lakh liter producing unit, as Nitin mentioned, can go up to even 160 CR as the setup cost. So even if say you put in 5% and the rest 95% is funded by the banks, then even then you are looking at huge investment cost and a huge loan as well, right? And the process by itself is a time consuming one, and you can look at starting the operations only within a time period of at least 9 to 15 months after you give your initial go ahead to go for such a plant, right? And also, obviously there are some good benefits that the government has foreseen. Obviously, one being that typical 100 KLPD plant gives work to about 100 people, and then you have a power requirement of about 4 megawatts. If you don't have your own cogen plant, then it means that you will be buying out so much of power from the local authorities or from a private player. Again, although there is a huge groundwater requirement also, almost to the tune of 8 to 8.5 liters for every liter of ethanol that is being made, you will still, because you are having enough buffer zones, you will be contributing to groundwater, increasing the groundwater availability through rainwater harvesting and things like that. Again, Nitin mentioned, the kind of land requirement that will be required is to the tune of around 20 acres that you will be looking at. And also, all this 20 acres has to be converted into industrial purpose. So I had a few questions asking, can I do it in, can I do it in just the agricultural purpose? No, it can't be, going forward for it because it's a red zone. So you need to have the industrial, all the industrial conversions to be done, change of land use has to be done, CLU has to be done, and you will also have to make sure some of the key requirements which Nitin mentioned. It has to be away from a reserve forest, it has to be away from a canal or a good water source like a river or a stream. It cannot be very close to a city or a village which has a minimum population of 4,000 and above. So these are some of the nuances that you will look at in which obviously we can help you out with. Also, I'm getting options. I'm getting questions such as, can I look at plants which are less than 10 KLPD or even less than 30 KLPD? See, I don't want to break the bubble here, but like I was mentioning, it is very difficult for you to sustain in such an environment by supplying to the OMC, because what you have to see is over a period of time, like in the next 4 to 5 years, of course, inflation is going to go high, and your raw material costs or your cost of labor or cost of anything for that matter, the logistics cost will obviously go high. But at the same time, your buying price is fixed, right? So obviously, over a period of time, when the government realizes that there is a good demand, they might start increasing the prices of the buying price that they have currently mandated to the OMC. But it is not going to be, like a market demand, market based demand, right? So it is the government who is the end buyer, although it's the OMCs like the BPCL and IOCL which is the end buyer. At the end of it, it's the government who is paying for it. So it is not like they will be able to do market linkages of your buying price, right? So this is something that you all have to keep in mind and say that, although it might look like, okay, I have a small budget, can I go for a smaller budget kind of a plan? But if you're doing that, then don't look at the OMCs as your end customer. You can look at ENA, or you can look at rectified spirits, or you can look at other markets where, like for example, you can also look at the pharma segment. Or during the COVID time, you saw there was a huge requirement of sanitizers, which is basically alcohol based. So these are some of the other people who can be your typical customers. But then again, that again depends on your marketing muscle power and how you can tackle these people, and also how you can make a brand for yourself in these markets. But distillery has been a business which has been always evergreen. There is a large drinking population which is there, and the demand for ENA, which is extra neutral alcohol, is always there, which is basically the same. I mean, the process by itself does not change. It's just that the percentage of alcohol reduces in an ENA. And also, there are other options, like how I was telling. You can look at making a biomass based diesel, or you could look at some of the most of these ethanol plants will require amylase and amylase. So these are the raw material additions which will be required, and also yeast as well. So there are options, plenty of options there as well. Which, as in, you'll become a supplier to one of these ethanol based plants. So this is also something that you can look at if you have a lower budget, right? So, but of course, if there are people who have a good budget, who are looking at 100 KLPD plant with a budget of 100 to 150 crores, and for them it is they can definitely go for this. There is a good market, and also you can look at options where after I mean, if you have additional capability to produce more alcohol, you can look at even the ENA market as well. So these are some of the options that we want to put forth to people who have the energy and also the intention to go for ethanol based plants, but they do not want to invest so much of money. So typically, this is one of the plants that we are working with. This is in fact a sugar-based. A person who was already into sugar-based ethanol, and he has gone in for a multimodal kind of an input with the grain-based ethanol as well. So he is with this existing setup, he's kind of expanding into grain-based ethanol plant as well. So I would just want to, showcase the different kind of units that are available, and the different, I would say the various parts of an ethanol-based manufacturing unit, which is showcased over here. And with that, I would want to, end our presentation here. And I see a lot of questions that are coming in. So Akanksha, if you allow me, I'll try to pick up a few questions, and also if I am missing out on some of the questions, then you can shoot it out directly to me. So bear with me when I go down to the entire question list. So okay, so I have a question. I think I have partly answered this, that what will happen to ethanol-based plants when 10 years down the line when EVs pick up. Well, there is always this new technology coming in, and there could be, not just EV, there could be hydrogen-based fuel cells, which could also pick up and become a competitor to the market. So, but having said that, like I said, electrical vehicles are not the only, vehicles are not the only place where the fuel is being used today. It is also being used for DGs, the generators, which are the large commercial consumers of the fuel today. And India being a net importer of fuel, it is going to be very difficult for them to meet the targets, even what they have put in the 2025 target of 20% ethanol blend with the kind of production that we have. We are already in a deficit of almost 50% of the ethanol requirement that we have today. So having said that, like I said, it's a sunrise sector for the next 10 to 15 years. There is no, kind of a drawback or a step back that anybody needs to take with the kind of demand that is there in the market today. So next question I have is 100 KLPD grain consumption and working capital. Okay, I think this Nitin has kind of mentioned in his presentation, but if you want the entire breakup of it, we can have a one-to-one session which can be done after this webinar. Uh, Okay, how much KLPD? Like I said, KLPD can be anything from 1 KLPD to 200 to 250 KLPD. Also, you can go for it. But the economical feasibility of the project has to be looked at. What we have seen from practical ground realities is that around 30 KLPD is a good enough plant. Having said that, again, it depends on if you have a good FPO kind of a thing where in your region where you're going to set up your plant, where you could probably work out better rates for your raw material, then you can obviously make it feasible even below 30 KLPD. But it's very rare. I mean, it's I mean, theoretically I can talk a lot about it, but practically if you look at it, 30 KLPD or more is what is going to be economically feasible for you. Basically, because your market is the OMC, right? And who has already fixed the price for whichever kind of category of alcohol, I mean ethanol that you are going to produce, right? Again, I have questions. Are the OMCs entering into agreement? Yes, the OMCs have. Obviously, the window has not yet opened for this year. Once it opens, we can look at formulating the agreements with the OMCs. Again, there is no, there is nothing to hide or anything in this. The prices have already been fixed. The OMCs are in dire needs of high, good quality ethanol. And anybody who is coming forward with the right proposal and with the right approvals, the OMC is going ahead with it and making the tri-party agreement for buying out the ethanol that you are producing. Okay, who will buy the final product? Obviously, it's the OMCs. Again, how difficult? It's not at all difficult. Frankly, the difficult part is getting the environmental clearance and the clearance from the DFPD, that is the Department of Food and Public Distribution, who actually opens up the applications for ethanol plants. That is the difficult part. Getting the OMC, like I said, they are in dire needs of more and more ethanol, so they'll not put in too many spanners in your application work. What is the present market price that has been fixed? Okay, the present market price I think has been clearly shown in one of the slides. If you need the slide again, it's very easily available, and also we can share it with you. What will be the cost? Cost again, I think Nitin has mentioned for a 30 KLPD plant. Sorry, for a 100 KLPD plant. Again, price of DDGS, I think I given you a kind of a ballpark figure. Again, when you look at, if you think that it's going to be difficult for you to sell this DDGS, you don't have to worry. There are a lot of cattle feed manufacturing units and poultry manufacturing units for whom the DDGS becomes the raw material. So they'll be very willing to buy it out from you. Or in a few cases, what has happened is I would say the guy who is setting up I would say a smaller ethanol plant, fuel plant, is also himself setting up a small cattle feed unit as well. So we have had such examples also, wherein he is using the DDGS as the raw material for his cattle feed unit. As you said, if we don't have a big budget, then we can supply to these plants. Yes, if you are a raw material provider, like say for example you are a trader in rice, then you are obviously, you can look at supplying grains to these plants. For example, not just rice, you could also be a maize, supplier or something like that, corn supplier, and then you could be a supplier to these plants. But then again, this is not a manufacturing sector that you'll be a trader in that case. Again, CO2, the price of CO2, I think the latest price I'll have to figure it out. But CO2 is again a byproduct which can be sent in to most of these people who are making fire extinguishers and other industrial products as well. But again, it is not a huge market that you can look at. Considering that your cost of logistics of moving this CO2 from your wherever your plant is to a plant which is going to use it as a raw material itself should not become very prohibitive. Uh, of course, the reason why ethanol is being promoted is that ethanol is a more greener kind of alternative to the fuel. So that is why it is being promoted. So obviously, it is to make sure that pollution levels are reducing, and this is in line with India's carbon footprint agreement as well. So they want to reduce their carbon footprint, and that is the reason why EBP has been preponed. Otherwise, the previous deadline was 2030, and now it has been made 2025. Risk factors. Okay, see, let me not sugarcoat anything on this forum. See, risk factors is you will be putting an ethanol plan. We have, over a period of time, policies coming in and saying that food is going.
Guru sir,
Yes.
please repeat again because your voice was breaking. So
Okay,
I
okay,
just request
sure.
you to
Yeah, okay.
repeat the
So
answer.
there is a question asking me that what is the kind of risk for going for a grain-based plant? Okay. So when I say talk about this, there could be a lot of issues that can come in. One is obviously the social issues, wherein rice is being considered as a food grain, and now it will be used for making other products such as ethanol and things like that. Although technically the rice which you are using to make ethanol is not something which is fit to consumable for human consumption, but you know how social issues can crop up. I'm sorry. So, there could be some social issues saying that rice should not be used to used for any other purpose other than consumption purpose, human consumption purpose. Then in that case, there could be some disruption in your raw material. To avoid that, we also have this multimodal raw material available, right? So you have I mean, you could probably use corn and also maize, barley, jowar, and other crops as well. But again, these are some of the things which are there in every kind of industry, right? So even if, for example, some years you have sugarcane farmers protesting on the MSPs, so this is something which is unavoidable. So these are some of the social kind of risks that you will have to look at. But otherwise, availability of rice or corn as a raw material is not at all an issue. As long as you have your local channels, completely taken over, you should not bother much, unless you are not a sugar related producer, or you are not in the sugarcane business, and you are trying to get ethanol made from sugarcane. Then in that case, like I said, there is a good monopoly between the existing sugar factories who know how to manipulate the demand and also the availability of the raw materials. So in that case, you might face tough competition from these sugar industries. Then, can you provide sample project report? Yes, but I think you'll have to talk to my team on that and look at what generally is feasible for you. Is it mandatory to have a long-term agreement with the OMC? Yeah, no. Basically, the interest subvention scheme basically says that the OMC is the final buyer of your end product. So the bank, the OMC, and you become a tri-party agreement, and then you have an escrow account where the money is directly deposited by the OMC into your escrow account. So bank has your first lien on that particular account, right? Next is, how about rendering EPC service? Yes, that's what we do, right? So we, like how Nitin mentioned, we do phase one of the project wherein we help you get in all the approvals, and then we hire consulting firms like how Mr. Sharad Chaudhary is there with us. We have eminent people who basically look at help you in setting up the entire plant, right from getting the point of raw materials to the design and design of the entire plant to the actual setup.
Guru sir,
Does it yeah.
yeah, I would like to add one more point on the is it mandatory to give all the produced ethanol to OMCs, where the guidelines are structured in such a way that they have kept a minimum 75% of produced ethanol should be supplied to OMCs. So they have given option of rest 25% if you can convert it into ENA or other purpose and can sell privately also. That option is there from the ministry as per the last year guidelines. So
Right.
there is an option for the entrepreneurs. They can plan if they don't want to take risk. They can supply the entire 100% of produced ethanol to the OMCs, or if they have any connects with the breweries or alcohol industries, where they can do one more step of process, where converting ethanol into a rectified ENA, and they can supply to breweries also. They can make another 25%. They can make another a good margin in that one also. So that feasibility the government has provided to all the OMCs.
Okay. Thank you, Nitin. Also, Nitin, what would be the probable cost of setting up a 60 KLPD plant?
So 60 KLPD can fit within 85 to 90 crores of investment,
Right.
and with a land area of around 12 to 15 acres,
Right.
is sufficient to fit in a 50 or 60 KLPD line. That will be a feasible, another feasible if someone don't want to go for an 100 KLPD, which looks very huge investment for them. What we have suggested, we have a clients which we are doing 60 KLPD also for two of our clients. What we have given a feasible option for them is to buy a land of 25 to 30 acres itself, because considering the future expansion also, it is not like that they will stick on for a 50 or 60 KLPD for the entire 10 down the line 10 15 years. They can increase their capacity of the production also. So land will be an issue for them, and again to take the neighboring land, convert that, and all the issues may come. So to make it ease of operation, we have suggested them to take a sufficient land considering the future expansion and other things. So 50 KLPD can be started initially. Later they can start expanding to maybe 75 or 100 directly, with adding the some more process involved in it.
Right. So I have one question, which I think I just rephrase the question. It is basically that will which is the best state to set up this plant? Like how Nitin was telling, no, you can set this up plan. I mean, if you want the best kind of state-related subsidies, then Northeast region or the Northeast region could be a better option, because obviously there are additional kind of government help that you can look at in terms of the donor and other benefits. Donor is basically the Department of Northeastern Region, which basically, other than the government subvention schemes, they are also giving some benefits like tax breaks and things like that. But if you see, typically what happens is all these states have the same buying price, right? So if, for example, you would want to set up your plant, best for you to MP, or would it be best to supply it to Bihar? It again depends, no, how far you are from the nearest OMC, like either a refinery or a blending unit. How far is your location from it? Because the government is not going to pay you extra if you are going to transport your finished products from UP to MP, right, or from UP to Bihar. It is up to you to where you are going to supply it. If you are on the border of UP and Bihar and you have a closer OMC or a refinery, then it makes feasible for you to go and supply it in Bihar. But there is no restriction as such that you have to give it to the same state where you make it or things like that. But again, you have to figure out your economic feasibility of that. Like after you add your logistics cost and things like that, will it make it feasible for you to transport it to whichever location is closest to you. So I think this answers the question of which state is best. Uh, then one of the questions that I kind of figured out here is, see, what is the payback period? Typically, what we foresee is about 5 to 6 years is when you should start breaking even. Based on their monthly tenders. Okay, so see, the tri-party agreement need not be with just one IOCL, or you should do it only with BPCL. It is nothing like that. Say you are going to produce 100 KLPD plant, then you can say that you want to supply 50 KLPD to BPCL and another 50 KLPD to IOCL. But is it really feasible for you to start sending your finished product to two different refineries, unless both these refineries are close to you, right? So you'll have to figure out your logistics cost. So there is no rule restricting you that you have to supply to one OMC, but your economic feasibility also will have to be looked at. How much it will cost you to transport your product to that particular OMC. Ethanol purchase price, again we can share that entire list. It depends on what is your raw material for it. Let me see. We don't have a good portfolio. See, portfolio has to be created. Like I was telling, if you don't have a private limited company already created and already having a 3 to 5 year kind of a kind of a 3 to 5 years of history, what you can look at is making a new company, but then the directors who are going to be part of this private limited company should have a good net worth. So that also can be done, and it can also be a FPO, or it can also be a consortium of a few industries who are going to come in. That is also allowed. Cornstarch input. I think cornstarch input, compared to both the grains today, cornstarch is the one which is having better. One is it has got higher price also, and the second thing is it has got your DDGS cost, and if you look at the output also that you get from corn, it is slightly better than what is got from rice. Sharadji, you want to add something here?
No, it's not. It's all we have covered all the things.
Right. With respect to corn and rice, rice is slightly better. And also, see, nothing to put anybody down, but then corn is not a food crop. So tomorrow, even if you have some kind of a social issue that is coming in, and if your basic raw material is in corn, then you still are covered to that extent, right? So because it's not a food crop, and you're going to look at using the surplus production of corn.
Broken rice is available in Chhattisgarh.
Correct. Broken rice and old rice is already available, which can be used.
And there is a
Provide list of refineries. See, list of refineries, and this one is basically your the IOCL and BPCL refineries and blending units, which are there in every state, and we can give you that list. You can figure out how far it is from your location. PPT, yeah, PPT will be shared after payback.
and new technology is coming on algae.
Sorry, Sharadji, I couldn't hear you.
New technologies are coming on algae.
Correct. Yeah, on algae as well, on seaweed and algae as well. So that
It is under
right.
still it is under development.
Correct. Can I sell alcohol for human consumption? See, what you produce here is about 99% purity of alcohol, and what you need for drinking is what you produce here is at 95% alcohol, and what you need for the ENA is slightly more distilled. So you'll have to put in 2 more distillation columns probably at a cost of 2 to 3 crores more, and then you can make the ENA and RS as well. So that is a feasible thing, but again, it depends on how you can market whatever the finished product that you are making. So there is no restriction to it. So like I said, see, even when you put in your approval for a 100 KLPD plant, it is not guaranteed that you will get 100 KLPD sanction. But say suppose you get 60 KLPD as sanction, the rest 40 KLPD if you have the financial power to set it up, you can go ahead and set it up, and then you can sell that alcohol to the distilleries. That is still possible. If we decide today to install the plant, so how much time it will take? So I said no. So it will take typically about 5 to 6 months for us to get the approvals in place, all the approvals, and post that about 9 to 12 months for the plant to come up. Right. So I think we are running out of time, but I'm getting a lot of queries here. So I'm trying to quickly get in a few questions. Can you all arrange a visit? So arrange a visit. See, typically grain-based plants are still coming up. There are very few in the country, but in terms of the sugar-based plants, I mean the sugarcane based plants, there are a lot of them, so we can definitely help you on that. So tell me industries to visit, where do you buy slash lease, so when do you buy slash lease land? No. Okay, so the approval process is very very stringent. Like I said, it's not like how it was last year. So you have to either get land on lease for 50 years already in place before you even make your first application, or you should have the land in your name. Again, see, when you have a land on lease, there are a host of other questions that are going to be asked when during the technical committee approval. So you should be ready to answer that. So typically, I have seen that if you have land on your name and the land and location is finalized, when I say finalized, it should be away from canals, it should be away from rivers, it should be away from reserve forest, and all these aspects. So if the land is catering to all these requirements, only then your application is taken to the next level.
And Guru sir,
Yes.
regarding this approval part, like as before in the last 2021, how the approval went is like a submitting expression of interest to DFPD portal, and then the clearance part will be coming, EC clearance or pollution control clearance. Then the promoter has to run to the multiple departments to get the approval for other clearances, excise and other things. So this year ministry has made a improvement in that one to make ease of process. Recently they have included ethanol to national single window clearance portal. So in a single window we can then get an approval for all the other supporting clearance which is required once we get the approval from the DFPD. So national single window clearance has been completely open for now for the industries which has got approval in the last year. They are now submitting their supporting documents for EC clearance and pollution and other things to a single window clearance, where they don't have to now run to a couple of other departments to get the approval. They don't have to wait. Every status, every filing movement status, everything will be shown in the National Window Single Clearance portal itself.
Right, and also since we do not have the clear understanding of the requirements for this year, these are some of the things which we have figured out because of our proximity to the ministry and other things. But there could be some last minute changes and additional requirements that could come up, which we are not we can keep it open until the process occurs. So I think Akanksha, you could take over and thank the participants for bearing with us over this entire session. And also, any questions that you have, please revert back to us. I know there are a host of questions that we have not been able to answer because of the time limitation.
Thank you, Guru sir, and Nitin and Sharad sir, for your all the insights on ethanol plant. And I thank all the attendees who have been here for all the information sharing. Still, we can see a lot of questions coming up. So you can see a contact number over here. You can come to the, you can call us, and our experts can help you out with all your queries and details. And again, once again, thank you for joining for the for the webinar, and we shall conclude over here. Thank you, panel members, for being here, and thank you, attendees, for being such a good audience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharadji. Thank you, Nitin.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.